Mic check 1 2. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this installment of the 19 Report, coming to you live from Manning, South Carolina. Today is HIV Awareness Day. If you have not checked out our commentary on AIDS in South Carolina, you can view that on our YouTube page. That's the 19 Report on YouTube. Just type that into your search engine, and you should be able to type in the 19 Report, and once you get there, type in AIDS in South Carolina. That has an in-depth look at the AIDS virus, HIV, how it is contracted, how some people deliberately contracted it, how people could not talk about having the virus, and instead of telling their partner that they were infected with the virus, they just chose to believe that their partner wouldn't get infected by it. And a lot of lives have been turned upside down because of it. Now, today, we have a parental discretion advised on the show today. If my computer goes out, I won't be able to read any of the statistics that I want to read. So I will probably talk a little bit, God willing, and then just shut it down because my computer, I think the video card is going out. I know the memory is burning out on it, so it's been acting real strange on me. Also, I'm recording for YouTube. I would rather do it live on YouTube, but because the computer is acting so funny, my video card, I'm not going to risk that today. So again, it is HIV Awareness Day, and the 2019 theme for today is Doing It My Way. Doing It My Way. That is the HIV Awareness Day theme. I was riding to my son's camp today, and I was talking to him about HIV. He didn't understand exactly why it was so important to have people aware of HIV. And I was explaining to him the importance of the awareness of HIV, why we should be aware of it, and what he should be aware of. And I don't pull any punches when I'm talking to my children about sex, about anything that I've done in my lifetime. I try to be as brutally honest as I can be. So first of all, let's go into the meaning of HIV. And today it's going to be a lot of technical terms, but again, it may be some parental discretion advised because of the terms I have to use and a lot of the graphic words I have to use to describe HIV and how it's contracted. HIV is the human immune deficiency virus. Again, this is the virus that is contracted before being infected with full-blown AIDS. Now, I know that in South Carolina, in Manning, especially across town where we lived, a lot of people were exposed to the virus. People very close to me were exposed to the virus. I thought I was exposed to the virus at one time, and since then I've been getting HIV tests every 1-2 years, mostly once a year now. And each time I take the test, I'm just so nervous about it all because it could be years after contracting the HIV virus that you actually begin to show some of the symptoms. So whenever I start to sweat a little bit or my lymph nodes start to swell, even though I have sinus problems, I get very nervous. And even though you start to see shingles, you can have shingles from old chicken pox symptoms, but then shingles is also part of HIV. Night sweats and things of that nature makes you very nervous. And the one thing I would not want to do is to spread a virus to anyone knowingly, as I would hope anyone else would not want to do that as well. So we are all under the scrutiny, all under the fear of what if I have the disease, the virus. So I'm saying that to say that to any of you that have contracted the virus, if you feel that this is a personal message to you, the only way it could be personal is if you take it personal. I don't know you. I don't know your conditions. No one has told me anything about anyone having the virus, with the exception of the people that I know have the virus. So, and the exception of the people that I know who have the virus and other people who have actually been sexually involved. Quake, you ain't call me, man, and tell me you were home. So now you on a live with me, man. I guess you home. Boy, you got an apple head, boy. Anyway, HIV, South Carolina. South Carolina is number 8. Columbia, South Carolina is number 8 in cases of HIV. But I want to go into the human immune deficiency virus today. Again, this is going to be such a boring commentary with so much needed information. Acquired immune deficiency syndrome, that's AIDS, of course, is a chronic, potentially life-threatening condition caused by the human immune deficiency virus. By damaging your immune system, HIV interferes with your body's ability to fight the organism that causes disease. HIV is a sexually transmitted disease. Again, if you have not been watching the news, almost 6 restaurants in South Carolina, people who ate at those restaurants contracted hepatitis A. Now, hepatitis A attacks the liver and destroys the liver, but it can be treated. Hepatitis A, people in restaurants with their hands either putting their finger in their nose where their mucus is, wiping their behind and not cleaning it, or touching their penis or vagina and not washing their hands, and then touching your food. 6 different restaurants, hepatitis A has been spread to patrons of those restaurants. Now, again, Columbia, South Carolina, 25.6 poverty, rural geographics, lack of affordable health care, and social stigma and religion all contribute to the prevalence of HIV in the South. A diagnosed person might not seek treatment due to fear of rejection from the religious community. Again, a lot of our people are suffering from full-blown AIDS. A lot of our people are suffering from HIV. I've had the scare of HIV myself on several occasions. I get checked every year, and it doesn't get any easier for me every year. Every year I get tested, and before the tests come back, I am terrified. Now, a lot of people like to associate cancer with HIV and would rather say a person died of cancer than to say they died of AIDS, because of the fact that AIDS and cancer destroys the white blood cells. So rather than say they had AIDS and find out who all of their partners were that they slept with, they would just say it's cancer. And then you have 10 to 20 people who have slept with this person without protection, who risk spreading the disease to other people. Now, if you want to listen to some serious commentary on that subject, the 19 report on YouTube we did about 10 years ago, AIDS in South Carolina, very powerful. You're talking about pastors and preachers, women who didn't have sex for 10 years and decided to give themselves to a man and ended up contracting the disease, and preachers who just spread the disease because they believe that because they are of God, the disease won't spread. But I want to go into specifics today. I want to go into what I had to explain to my son this morning about HIV, about AIDS, because young boys, unfortunately, where we used to have friendships, where we had a best friend, young boys are beginning to fall deeper into emotional connections with each other. And with television and movies and video games promoting the homosexual lifestyle, young boys are engaging in anal sex at an early age. Young girls are engaging in anal sex at an early age because they know that to secrete sperm into the anal cavity won't cause them to get pregnant. But the sensitivity of the anal cavity, if you develop a tolerance for having a penis inserted into your anal cavity, the pleasure is so good that most people would opt out of vaginal sex to have anal sex. So once the female starts to having anal sex and it becomes so pleasurable and the muscles begin to be able to stretch to take on bigger and bigger penises, I want to talk to you about the chemicals that are released in the anal cavity, where the viral load of HIV and AIDS settles in the anal cavity, why it settles there, and the danger of not knowing. And the number of young people in South Carolina, men in particular, who've chosen the homosexual lifestyle and who have contracted the HIV virus. There are thousands of young men in South Carolina, Manning, South Carolina, hundreds of them, who have the AIDS, the HIV virus, which can eventually morph into full-blown AIDS if not detected and treated. So again, Columbia, South Carolina is number 8 in HIV contraction, and most people Love Columbia, love to visit Columbia, love to party in Columbia. Sumter is also high in the rankings as well. HIV, again, is a sexually transmitted disease. It can also be spread by contact with infectious blood or from mother to child during pregnancy, childbirth, or breastfeeding. Without medication, it may take years before HIV weakens your immune system to the point that you have full-blown AIDS. Again, many people are carrying this virus, the HIV virus. I had the scare of wondering if I was HIV positive years ago. And since then, I've been tested. Every year I get tested. Every year it's very difficult for me because every year I'm more and more afraid that, I'm going to be HIV positive. And that I don't want to spread to any other person, although I'm not promiscuous. I don't step out on my wife. I don't have a desire to. It's just not as, but I guess when you're younger, that's your thing. But with me, hey, it is what it is. But some people do. Some people do step out on their partners and come right back home that same night after engaging in some form of sex with another person and then engage in raw, unprotected sex with their spouse. Men now are going and bending over and having anal sex and engaging in anal sex and then coming home to their spouse and engaging in sex with them. There is no cure for AIDS, HIV, but there are medications that can dramatically slow the progression of the disease, slow it down. These drugs have reduced AIDS death in many developed nations. Now, I have a partner of mine who is in the medical field. And when he asked the question, are there any medical issues with you or your spouse? People don't have a problem with saying, yeah, I'm HIV positive, as though that's some badge of honor. You're under God's divine blessing that the HIV virus has not destroyed your immune system, destroyed you, and that you're able to get the medication necessary to fight off or ward off or balance out the disease. In many cases, we don't understand or comprehend the amount of money it takes to keep getting these drugs because we're on Medicaid or some other form of insurance that it doesn't come directly out of our pockets. But for those who work a 9 to 5 or longer, who can't get medical insurance, being able to maintain your life as a working citizen is very, very difficult. So before we begin to just run out and do all of these, because we'll get sexually transmitted disease, go get a penicillin shot and just wait a few days and go right back to business as usual. We're reckless in our uncontrollable desire for sex, with the booties being shown, the ass, big booties got AIDS too. Big vaginas have AIDS too. Pretty faces have AIDS too. Pretty faces have HIV. Handsome men with big muscles, HIV positive. Talking to the young people and talking to those who are afraid to talk about this subject, especially in the churches and with your children. Today is National HIV Awareness Day, and the theme for 2019 is, again, doing it my way. The symptoms of HIV and AIDS vary depending upon the phase of infection, and I hope you'll tune in or come back to the subject matter later on, because I want to talk a lot about anal sex, whether it's with a male or a female, and how the diseases are transmitted, because we are more concerned with the blood than we are with the mucus, because we don't understand the mucus that is produced in the vagina to lubricate the vagina, the mucus in the mouth, and especially in males, the mucus in the anal cavity. With the females, the same. It is the same. Anywhere there is mucus, if you have the HIV virus, even if you have the flu, even if you have pneumonia, it all accumulates in that mucus. So for those of you who like to perform fellatio or eat a woman out vagina, her anus, eat a man out his vagina, you're putting your mouth directly in contact with your open pores in your tongue, with the open pores, with the mucous membranes of the anal cavity, the mucous membranes of the vagina. And one of the ways that HIV and AIDS is detected is by these sores on your tongue. Most people infected by HIV develop flu-like symptoms within a month or 2 months after the virus enters the body. This illness, known as primary or acute HIV infection, may last for a few weeks. Possible signs and symptoms include, listen very closely, fever, headaches. My lymph nodes are swollen right now. Muscle aches and joint pain, rashes, sore throats and painful mouth sores, swollen lymph glands and lymph nodes here, under here, behind your neck, in your groin area, but mainly in the neck. These symptoms can be so mild that you may not even notice them. However, the amount of virus in your bloodstream, which is called the viral load, is quite high at this time. As a result, the infection spreads more easily during primary infection than during the next stage. When your lymph nodes are swollen, you may have a rash, what is called shingles. You may be very tired, foggy-minded. I encourage everyone to go today to your local health center. They're offering a lot of places. I think in Manning, I think they are. I'm not sure. But definitely in Sumter in Columbia, today is the free AIDS testing day. They may even have a mobile unit out. Get tested. Every year I get tested. When my results come in, if you watch my page, I always read my results on my page. Every year it gets more and more difficult to take the test because we've all been promiscuous and we've all dealt with someone who we know either has HIV, has full-blown AIDS, or has died from AIDS. And the young people are having so much sex, drunk sex, passed out sex, just willy-nilly sex. They're just sex addicts. They'll screw women in particular, screw 3-4 men a night. Men will do the same with other men. Screw 3-4 men a night and without a problem. And if you're not lubricated enough, and most of us don't know anything about lubrication, if you're not able to produce the mucus necessary to lubricate your vagina or your anal cavity, you don't have any external lubrication, you do put on the prophylactic, but you're pounding on it so hard that the thing tears inside the anal cavity or inside of the vagina. And usually you don't tell the person that you were having sex with that happened. Now, does rectal fluid contain HIV? This is what I want to get to, and then we're going to be through very quickly. Please spread this, share this information. Again, if you're HIV positive and you feel offended by what I'm saying, that's all right. The delete button is right there. Unfollow, unblock. If you want to live in this delusional world that everything is all right when it's not, that's okay. I'm not offended at all. Again, there should be testing facilities at local health departments. What amazes me is that we remember Sibling Day. We remember all of these different days. Happy Cousin Day, Happy Step on Your Right Foot Day, Happy Throw the Broom Out the Back Door Day. But today is HIV Awareness Day, something of vital importance. And it's not some magical hocus pocus day that because, oh, God cured me of HIV. There was a lady here saying that years ago. And I told her I thought that was very, very reckless for her to say that. Now, in an HIV positive person, the mucous membranes throughout the body can contain a lot of HIV. I'm going to say that again. In a HIV positive person, the mucous membranes throughout the body can contain a lot of HIV. We're so focused on the blood. They're not bleeding, so I couldn't contract the disease. But in anyone's body, and we are full of mucus because we eat a lot of chicken, a lot of red meat, a lot of other things. We're full of mucus. The mucous membranes in the body are what captivates and holds and carries the HIV virus. The mucous membranes through the body can contain a lot of HIV. This is because these membranes are rich in immune cells, which are cells that HIV likes to infect and replicate within. So once the HIV virus or the AIDS virus penetrates the mucous membranes, it enters it, attacks it, and replicates itself, just like cancer. So a lot of times when people are dying of AIDS, the family members who feel embarrassed that the person they love contracted AIDS will say they died of cancer. Now, I did a commentary about Africa one time, and a friend of mine, very close friend of mine, sent me a message and said all of his life he was embarrassed of Africa and how the people were poor and how the people couldn't take care of themselves and how he thought it made black people in America look bad. But because of that because of what the commentary that God permitted me to talk about, he saw Africa in a different light. Likewise with HIV and AIDS. We don't want to talk about that because we think that makes us look bad. Oh, Keith has HIV. Keith has AIDS. I didn't say I had it. I'm using that as an example. Listen to what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. I use myself as the example. So all of a sudden we're embarrassed that, okay, I got to say I have this disease. I wouldn't be embarrassed if I was HIV positive. I wouldn't be embarrassed if I had AIDS. In fact, I would be an advocate, God willing, about the disease. But many of us are horny, very horny, always having sex, but never telling people that we are HIV positive. Just make sure they got on a rubber. Make sure they got on a contraception. And that is deception. Again, the virus loads itself into the mucous membranes. When a woman's vagina, when she gets excited, the vagina literally starts to leak this mucus. It is a lubricant. Likewise, as I was saying earlier, when the children who don't want to get pregnant want to have sex, they're going to learn how to have anal sex. And if you have anal sex enough, whether you are a male or a female, the anal cavity begins to produce that same mucus lubrication that the vagina does. And inside of the anal cavity are more sensitive points where you will get sometimes more pleasure in your anal cavity than you would get in your vagina. So a lot of women, a lot of men are now turning to anal sex. They're turning to anal sex because of the less risk of getting pregnant, and they're turning to anal sex because of the pleasure of it. And men have sex with men because they can have free, explosive sex without the worry of making a man pregnant. This is one of the main reasons. So if you are engaging in homosexual sex, that is your business. Today, we're talking about cautionary practices we can take in order to be sure that we don't spread or contract the HIV virus, which will eventually lead to full-blown AIDS. Again, this virus it loves mucus. So if you have mucus in your sinus cavities and you're HIV positive, it's there. If you accumulate a lot of mucus in your throat, bronchitis or whatever in your mouth, the virus is there. But mostly the virus loads itself and overloads itself in the anal cavity, in the vaginal area, in the intestinal walls. So since so much HIV replication can occur at the mucous membranes, the virus is able to enter the mucus that the membranes produce. As a result, mucus produced by an HIV positive person can contain HIV, although the virus can be present in various amounts, which can potentially be transmitted to someone else. So we're so focused on blood transfusions and blood breaking the anal walls and blood being leaked out, that we're not paying attention to the mucus factor and the importance that mucus plays in carrying the HIV/AIDS virus. And to be honest, at this point, sex is like a drug because sex is what we use to relieve ourselves of the stresses of today. And when you can have anal sex with a man or a woman without care of pregnancy, 9 times out of 10, you're going to do it. And even though if you're cautious, I saw a documentary on AIDS where there was a male couple. One had AIDS, the other didn't. They vowed to each other that they would always wear condoms. But their desire got so strong one night, they didn't wear the condom thinking that this one time I wouldn't contract the disease, but he did. Today is HIV Awareness Day. Please be tested. I'm tested every year or 2 years, even if I have to pay out of my pocket. But now they're offering free testing, and for all the ballers out there with the 20 and 30 stacks, go ahead and get yourself tested, because you all are so wide open with drugs and sexual promiscuity. I'm promising you that your girlfriend is cheating on you. And she don't think anything about it. It's just sex. It's nothing, you know. And you don't think anything about it. It's just sex. It's nothing. But you should be considerate of the person's overall health. The mucous membranes of the rectum and the mucus they produce, rectal fluid, are no exception to this. Several studies show that HIV can be found in the rectal fluid of a person living with HIV 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times higher. In fact, one study of 64 HIV positive men, of which about half were on antiviral therapy, found that overall the average amount of virus in the rectal fluid was higher than that in their semen and in their blood. The amount of the virus in the fluid, the mucus, is higher than what is in the semen they ejaculate, as well as the blood that is produced when you break the anal walls of the anal cavity. Why might rectal fluid contain more HIV than other body fluids? It turns out that the majority of the immune cells in the body, including the cells that are major target for HIV, are located in the mucous membranes of the gastrointestinal tract. As I said earlier, the lower, upper intestines, small and large intestines, as well as the pancreas and the, prostate, which is what you're trying to massage when you're engaging in anal sex. You're trying to reach the prostate gland, and the prostate gland is so much pleasure if you find it that it wakes up a part of the brain that usually a person who engages in anal sex, whether they're male or female, really never turn around from that, really never go back to not wanting anal sex, because it's that pleasurable. The only thing that stops most people from re-engaging in anal sex is the guilt and the religious factor behind it. Other than that, they would engage in it, because the gate to the anus is closed very tight. Things are allowed to come out of it, and then it closes back up. You excrete waste from it, it closes back up. But when you can open that gate and go inside and poke around and find that pleasure center, boy, you messing with some serious business. And today's young children who used to have sleepover and pillow fight are now figuring out a way to prop the pillow up so they can get their penis deep into the anal cavity and have anal sex. This is reality now. We got to educate our children to the reality of what's going on and stop being naive to the fact that this world makes you want to find something that will relieve your stress. And if it's not cigarettes or drugs or liquor or some other form of pleasure, it's going to be sex. Why might rectal fluid contain more HIV than other bodily fluids? It turns out that the majority of the immune cells in the body, including the cells that are a major target for HIV, are located in the mucous membranes of the gastrointestinal tract, which includes the rectum. There are a lot of immune cells in the gastrointestinal tract because it has a very large surface area. Also, a large number of immune cells are needed to help to protect the gut from the foreign germs in our body and to control the growth of the friendly germs living in our gut. Now, you've heard of probiotics. I would advise people to look into taking a very high form of probiotic for the gut. Again, if you have a cold, if you have the flu, if you have pneumonia, let somebody dig around your anal cavity and see how quick it'll take them to get the same flu and disease you have. Because the virus accumulates in the mucus in the body. And that's why I tell anyone, when the first sign of a cold, you want to eliminate all of the germs out of your body. You want to take a laxative first. You want to take a colon cleanser to clean out the colon. You want to do something to eliminate most of the germs out of the body to decrease the amount of longevity of the virus in the body. You don't urinate, you don't drink a lot of water. That's why they say drink a lot of fluids. You don't drink a lot of water, you don't defecate. And so you take all these medications and all of that stuff stays in your body. You stay sick for months at a time, or you get it out of your body and it reoccurs. The high concentration of immune cells means that the majority of HIV replication is in someone with HIV may be happening in the gastrointestinal tract, including the rectum. This may explain why so much HIV can be found in rectal fluid. Again, rectal fluid. That's where the HIV virus congregates. That's where all viruses congregate, in mucus. And excitement produces mucus. The amount of chicken with the antibiotics that we eat produces too much mucus. I have too much mucus in my body right now. I wish there was a way to make talk like this so exciting, like sports and nonsense, that people would gravitate toward it and share it. Because in any case that you're talking about growing out of ignorance, if you don't listen to good counsel, you're never going to grow out of ignorance. You can't laugh it away, drink it away, or play it away. Our young children are under divine chastisement. They don't know it because they think materialism will save them from anything. Even the pants they wear, the tight clothes, not allowing the vagina and anal cavity to breathe is causing issues when it comes to building mucus. Most of them have to wear pads, women, because of anal discharge. Most of the men who engage in anal sex have to use butt plugs because of anal discharge. I told you parental discretion was advised today, and it is so. Because this is not going to be talked about in the church so much. I read that earlier, that it's a stigma of shame. By the way, I met a guy yesterday I hadn't seen in five or 6 years, and he gave me a hug in Walmart. And the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "What church do you go to?" I thought he was trying to pitch the church to me, but he was telling me that he and his family were tired of the church they were at because it wasn't teaching real life experience anymore. It was more in the realm of spiritual and delusion than it was in using the book to teach what's happening in the world today. We had a very good conversation. Today we're talking about HIV, and I'm closing right now with HIV transmission, and that's going to be the end of it. Rectal fluid has implications for HIV transmission through anal sex. When the HIV person is the insertive partner, that is, inserts their penis into a partner's anus, research shows that this type of anal sex can carry a significant risk of HIV transmission. The person receiving the penis is HIV negative. The person giving the penis is HIV positive. The person receiving the penis has more of a chance of contracting the disease because their anal cavity will begin to lubricate out of excitement and protection and produce all of this mucus and mucous membranes, and the HIV virus in the person who is inserting will want to attach to those mucous membranes, so it will run out like children running out to recess and attach onto your anal cavity and mucous membranes, and within a few days, you'll know that you're infected with the HIV virus. Many of women wait at home for your husband as he parties at night. And either he was receiving a penis in his anal cavity, or he was giving one, or he was giving one to a woman, or he was engaging in sex with the woman, and they both drunk, high, and producing a lot of mucus. And he comes home, you glad he's home, he turns you over and inserts himself into you, and immediately you are HIV positive. In fact, the average risk of HIV infection through a single act of condomless insertive anal sex with an HIV positive partner is slightly higher than through vaginal sex, but much lower than if the HIV negative person takes the receptive role during anal sex. Now, rectal fluid undoubtedly contributes to the risk of HIV transmission through anal sex where the insertive partner is HIV negative. Again, the person receiving, HIV positive. All of the mucus that is being excreted, that is exciting us, because we get excited when a woman gets wet. We get excited when a man gets wet. All of that fluid that's leaking out of those holes that we love to see, God made it that way, we love to see it, are carrying that HIV virus. So The minute you stick your penis in a female or a male, splash. It's like breaking up cancer cells, and that HIV virus can't wait to go inside of your and my urethra. We know that the HIV transmission to be possible, a fluid that contains HIV must come into contact with specific parts of the body that are vulnerable to HIV infection. It's HIV Awareness Day. Please get tested. If an HIV negative person has insertive anal sex with an HIV positive partner, rectal fluid containing HIV can come into contact with the urethra or the penis foreskin. So once it starts to soak into your and my urethra or into the little hole where the urine and the sperm comes out, both the urethra and the foreskin are vulnerable to infection. The foreskin, the skin, the front of the penis, is vulnerable to HIV infection. Rectal fluid may not be the only fluid involved in the risk. We're closing. Of HIV transmission during this type of sex. If the lining of the rectum has been damaged in some way, meaning you pounding on it or you hit the anal cavity from a different angle and tear the anal cavity, blood may also be present in the rectum. In some circumstances, blood containing HIV can come into contact with the foreskin and the urethra and also contribute to the risk of HIV transmission. However, rectal fluid is also present in the rectum, unlike blood, and therefore likely plays a greater role in the risk of HIV transmission. Now, you've never been told this before. Many of us don't study disease because we think it's impossible for us to get it. Many of us don't talk about gang violence or drugs or suicide or mental health because we think it's impossible for our family members to contract this or to get this or to be this. But God told me years and years ago to address all of it. And the day that I stop will be the day that I die. Whether it makes friends or makes enemies, God is the greatest. The key message in closing: it's important that HIV prevention messaging includes rectal fluid as one of the fluids that can contain and transmit HIV. If rectal fluid is excluded, it could lead an HIV negative person who is the insertive partner doing anal sex to underestimate their risk of HIV infection, because you go in slow and you stroking it slow and it feels good slow. You think, I'm not breaking the walls of the anal cavity, so I'm not going to get infected. But in actuality, that feeling is producing more mucus and causing your and my risk of HIV infection and AIDS infection to be higher. And again, I know we got some real killer thugs here in Manning, South Carolina, but I also know that many of us have engaged in anal sex with other men. I don't care if you did it, that's your business. But I know this for a fact. You know it too. And my cautionary message today is to get tested. There are many of the young soldiers that are dead now, men my age, from across town, who engaged in sex with women and men. And boy, I mean, really, we're just getting down with it. You don't have to tell the world about it, but we have to be more. We're creating a generation of diseased children, diseased drug addicts, addicted, mentally ill children. We're at fault for that. And very few people are fighting the battle to bring awareness to what's going on. Your child is, listen, 13 and 14 years old, man, 9 and 10, 8, 7, they're having their menstrual cycle. Once they begin to wipe their vagina and their anal cavity, they're going to start to feel something. Once they start to feel something and connect the two and start watching these videos, these cartoons, you got a monster on your hands. Start talking to them now, because there are perverted men in their 50s and 60s who don't mind sleeping with your 13-year-old daughter, who don't mind turning out your 13-year-old son. They don't mind. They're freaks themselves. They're uncontrolled freaks. They have no control over their desire to stick their penis in whatever, whenever. There are several key messages that can be given to clients about the risk of HIV transmissions through anal sex, where the HIV negative person inserts their penis into an HIV positive partner. Rectal fluid can contain a high concentration of HIV, and if it comes into contact with the partner's penis, can lead to HIV transmission. I want to say this before I close. to the LGBTQ community. Listen, if you started out as a man and you are now transitioned to a woman, please let another man know that. If you are homosexual, why not let your family know? Why you're going to stay in the closet? Just be who you are. God already knows. You don't have to be flamboyant, but that's your choice. Most men who are homosexuals don't want the world to know it. I know many of them. My son's godfather has been a homosexual all of his life. And anytime I ask him, what about that person, he'll pull that coat real quick. Your choice of lifestyle shouldn't be an embarrassment. If it is what you are, it's what you are. You don't have to encourage people to be like you in order that you don't be alone. That's Satan. That's a satanic person. I'm gay, so I'm going to make sure everybody else is gay. I'm a homosexual. I'll make sure everybody else is homosexual. Tell the truth about your sexual preference. Be real to yourself. And that way we don't have to be so concerned about sexually transmitted diseases. A very beautiful lady contacted me today on Facebook, wanted to get to know me better. And the first thing I told her, I'm happily married, been happily married for almost 20 something years. I'm happily married to my wife. I'm putting it right on the table. I don't care how pretty you are or whatever your deal is. Put it on the table. Now, HIV transmission through this type of anal sex does not require blood to be present in the HIV positive partner's rectum. Inflammation in the rectum caused by STIs or tearing may increase the amount of virus in the rectal fluid and increase the risk of HIV transmission. Minimizing rectal inflammation through the use of lubrication and management of STIs, getting tested for STIs may prevent increase in the fluid rectal viral. Let me tell you something. I remember one time being with a woman very close, and she had the flu. And I engage in what do you call it? Fellatio. Tongue to anus, tongue to vagina. And the next day I had the flu. That's how quick the virus spreads. I thought if I didn't kiss her on the mouth, I wouldn't have a problem. But I put my penis in her vagina and I engaged in fellatio and I got the flu. I contracted the flu. Now, lowering the viral load in the blood and rectal fluid through successful antiviral treatment eliminates the risk of sexual HIV transmission, even with the STI when the STIs are present. Now, they got this thing called Truvada for PrEP. I would advise that you look into that because that thing is killing people. Even when they show the Truvada commercial, right after it or before it, they got a lawsuit about what is destroying the kidneys, the liver, and is causing more issues. So again, the medical field, pharmaceuticals, be careful. Condoms in combination with lube are highly effective in preventing the risk of HIV transmission if used consistently and correctly. Condoms can also significantly reduce the risk of STI transmission. In closing, post-exposure prophylaxis and pre-exposure prophylaxis are both highly effective options for HIV. I don't know what those are, but look into them. Post-exposure prophylaxis and pre-exposure prophylaxis. Ask your health physician about them. I would assume that it is like, what do you call a diaphragm, where you actually it's like inserting a rubber onto the anus and having sex that way, where you're not coming in contact with the fluids, but you can lubricate yourself and be inside the person and feel the closeness at the same time. So I thank you all for tuning in to this installment. We didn't talk too long. Yeah, it's not too bad. I wanted to go into the specifics of HIV. It is HIV Awareness Day. If it was Cousin Day, Dog Day, Spit Day, Grass Day, Ant Day, Flea Day, Slap Somebody in the Face Day, we would have had an explosion on the timeline on Facebook and other social medias, but it is HIV Day. It's kind of like your children making the D honor roll. You ain't going to post that up. Only when they make the AB honor roll. And The person who made the D's may have tried just as hard as the person who made the A's. So let's begin to take things into consideration, the importance of them. Thank you so much for tuning in. HIV Awareness 2019 theme is Doing It My Way. Stay focused. Jamil Salib Zamir, the 19 Report. Thank you for tuning in. Alex, I'm going to read your messages later. I don't like to look at the board when I'm talking because I'm not too interested in the numbers, but I will comment afterwards. Thank you so much for tuning in, man. Thank you for hitting me up this morning as well. Blessings to you and your family. Peace.